We were able to know the chemical properties of paraffin through the creation of a candle, in which we were able to identify the properties of paraffin as well as implement them in the making of our candle. Paraffin is made up of hydrocarbons, which are compounds that are made up of only hydrogen and carbon. These molecules are very stable and don't react easily with other compounds, which means that the paraffin doesn't break down easily. Another thing about paraffin is that it can burn, and when it burns, it generates a heat, water, and carbon dioxide, thus making it a viable material for the making of candles. The making of candles allowed for a better comprehension of the properties of paraffin in a more ludic way, thus permitting a better deepening of the concept, unlike if it were teached in a more orthodox way. The main objectives of the lab are as follows. The first objective is to identify the properties of a paraffin as an alkyne and see how it reacts during combustion. The second objective is to know the solubility.
Hello, I'm Catalina, and today I'm going to show you what materials we use to create our scene decorative candle. So our first material, or principal material, was the pound wax. Here I have nearly 1/2 pound. You can use whatever kind of wax you need. There is paraffin, there is beeswax. It is going to depend on your final purpose. So you can choose whatever you want or whatever you need. To melt our wax, we're gonna need a double boiler. It is important to highlight that the melting point of the wax is around 60 Celsius degrees. So we have to wait until the wax reaches the ideal temperature for melting. For our candle, we used a polycarbonate mold, but you can also use glass mold. It depends on, as I said before, your final purpose or the aesthetic you want to give it. Also, we have here the candlestick. You can paste it, as I'm going to show you, to your mouth, and after you put the melted wax here inside of it. Other important material was the hardener powder. And what happens with the hardener powder? It is gonna let us to give a specific structure according to our silicone mold. So if you want to give a specific structure to your candle without it breaking or with it being straight or hardened, as its name says it, you just have to put 1 spoon of hardener powder inside the wax while it is melted. Here we have a flower silicone mold, and with this we can give a decoration to our candle. And some important point that can't be missing is our red fruit fragrance. It has aldehydes and ketones that is gonna give a fresh, bright top note to our candle. So it is gonna have a bright fragrance. And our oil-based colorants. Here I want to also highlight that with oil-based colorants you can give a partial color to all the candle. Water colorants are not gonna serve to you. And that was all.
The process of making candles is a fun and creative process, perfect for beginners. So let's start how this group created his candle. First, let's talk about the materials we need. Very important, and everything is ready before they begin. So Catalina already said the materials, so I will explain the function of each. So to start, we need a wax. There are several types of such as wax, beeswax, and paraffin wax. It's recommended to soy wax because it's easy to work with and eco-friendly depending on the size of your candles. You will need approximately 50 grams. Next, we have the wick. Choosing the right wick is crucial. If of course you use a 10 cm diameter container or a 20 cm wick should we work well. Remember this wick influence how your candle will burn. Now let's talk about the containers. You can use glass jar or silicone molds. Personally, I love using glass jars because they give a candle an elegant touch. And in our group, we use a silicone mold. If you want to give the candles a special touch, you can add colorants and essential oils. This can affect the way that the candle functions because when the candle burns, the candle will be better. So on the way that we make the candles, we need to melt the wax and the thermometer monitor on the temperature. And there's tips that make sure you have everything ready for the make process smoother. So next we are gonna see how the candle is made.
Hi, I'm Dres Monroy. I'm going to explain the summary and the keywords. The summary of the experiment is: the experiment was used to understand the properties of the paraffin by creating a candle. The paraffin was melted and mixed with different colorants, forming a candle that was properly formed. And in the end, the candle was or generate a moderate combustion and a fragment release. The keywords of the experiment are paraffin, candles, and combustion.
Up next, we'll respond the following set of questions, starting with the first one. What characteristics identify paraffin as an alkane? Well, the first set of characteristics is its composition, as paraffin is made up of only hydrogen and carbon that's joined through a single bond. And alkanes have only connection bonds single bonds. Another characteristic that allows us to identify paraffin as an alkane is its non-polarity, as due to the solubility test that was realized, previously, and we managed to identify that paraffin is a non-polar as it doesn't mix with water. And non-polars are a typical characteristic in alkanes. The second question is, what were you able to observe regarding insolubility and polarity? Well, first of all, we tried dissolving the paraffin in water, and through that we found out that it didn't mix well at all. They were insoluble, and thus proving that paraffin might be a non-polar compound. Then we dissolved it in ethanol, and we found out it was partially soluble in it, however not fully, due to ethanol possessing both polar and non-polar characteristics. And lastly, we dissolved it in acetone, which did in fact fully dissolve in, as acetone is a non-polar compound.
Fragrance. Here we have our red fruit fragrance, so the principal compound or the primary compound is gonna be star, that is gonna give a kind of fruity scent to our fragrance. And we're also gonna have ethyl butyrate, isoamyl acetate, and ethyl acetate that are responsible for the individual notes within all. Also, there are the aldehydes and ketones that, as I mentioned before, they're gonna give a bright, top, fresh note to the scent in total. And the other question says, which colorants work best? Were they soluble in wax? We work with two types of colorants, water-based colorant and soil-based colorant. As it was weighted, the water-based colorant was not soluble at all inside the wax, so it didn't give a specific color to the wax, as the oil-based colorant gave it. So for that reason, we prepare our candle of just one color, as we made the
Now I'm going to explain the question number 5 and 6. The question 5 says, were you able to produce your own colorants? What were the results? The colorant that we used, we buy in a store. This meaning that they are previously manufactured, but in the experiment we mix it to create a new color of colorant. In this case, the colors are brown. And in the last question, what kind of combustion occurred, what products were formed? Okay, are a moderate or a slow combustion because the paraffin evaporates and burns gradually and producing light and heat.
It can be concluded that not only was the experiment successful, but that it met the different criteria that we were taking into account, but also the objectives that, such as the addition of fragrances, correctly we achieved, or even thought it must be taken into account that the dyes that have to be made from because it cannot work. Although 50 that could not research the combustion process, the flame will be yellow. Therefore, the candle did not have a strong combustion, but it did have enough combustion to have able to release the different fragrances and fulfill the purpose. It can be concluded that the experiment could be concluded correctly following and all the parameters established in the class. Thanks to the instructions given, this can be a good experimentation process could be carried out.
Esa cosita que tira fuego. Eso, soplete. Pero no se nos permite ahora trabajar con fuego, entonces. Por ahora. Entonces, esto es para Calificación,
Sí.
bajo, puntuación de 1 a 2, básico de 3 a 4, alto de 5 a 6 y superior 7.
Listo.
Presentación de la vela.
La presentación de la vela. Siete.
Gracias.
Aroma.
7.
Es de frutos rojos y naranja.
Naranja.
Nada.
Esencia de frutos.
Originalidad e innovación.
En cuanto a la originalidad, me gustaría destacar el tema de la escarcha, de la brillantina, diría en otras regiones del país, de la mirella. Le da un toque personal, original, creativo. Entonces, 7.
Gracias, profe.
Antes de la siguiente calificación, vamos a explicar un poquito porque la hicimos está bien. Nosotros en química estamos viendo la combustión orgánica. Inicialmente vamos a trabajar preparaciones por el carbón, pero en esta vela quisimos hacer algo un poco más innovador. Entonces, por eso le hicimos más amigable con el medio ambiente y utilizamos palma de cera, que al quemarse no tiene una condición y por ende no contamina como el parafina. Para el proceso prácticamente derretimos la cera, derretimos la cera, hicimos una mezcla química, pudimos esperar a que la cera llegara a un punto de fusión para poder echar efectivamente los colorantes. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Cada cera tiene un punto de fusión distinto y por ende va a tenemos que echarle tanto colorante como aromatizante en distintos puntos de fusión, o sea, en distintas temperaturas. En la parafina pasa más o menos a los 75 grados, más o menos, es el que vamos a echar.
De forma uniforme y que no haya fallas en cuanto a la solidificación de la cera o inconsistencias en su olor.
Con esta cera fue más o menos a los 60 grados, entre 60 y 65, para que el aroma perdurase, la cera se solidificase y se quedase más rápido. Entonces digamos que fue gracias a eso que lo pude tener un color más profundo.
¿Por qué escogieron ese color?
Hay un factor muy importante de resaltar y es que no todos los colorantes sirven para hacer verdes. Tuvimos que hacer una prueba. Hay unos colorantes que son hechos a base de agua y no sirven porque es
El morado también representa las flores que van a representar esta vela una orquídea.
Oh, ok.
Entonces hicimos distintas pruebas, hicimos con distintos colorantes y los que más nos funcionaron fueron los que estaban hechos a base de acero, que son afines con la cera. Entonces por eso y más que parece un color bonito, escogimos el morado.
Muy bien.
Entonces ya teniendo esto claro, conocimiento del proceso.
Teniendo en cuenta del 1 al 7, valoración, teniendo en cuenta todos los conocimientos que presentaron, evidenciaron, señalaron sobre la manera, la forma, el método de utilizar, considero que 7 también.
Gracias.
Gracias, profe.
Conexión con la química.
Es decir, ¿cómo es ese punto de interés?
Conectados estamos con la materia que usamos la química para la ecuación.
Desde luego el 100%, para generar este producto debe tener un conocimiento importante y apasionado por la química. Entonces,
Listo. Eso sería todo. Muchísimas gracias.
con gusto, obviamente.